am enough. I too am someone, you know. So yeah, man, it started with a relationship, and it moved to me wanting to please women, and then it took a woman to make me realize what it is that I could actually do with my art. And I don't, man, I think I met Jessica Care Moore once, and I never told her this. Like, I never told her like she's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing the way that I'm doing it. Uh, I just, I don't know. I can get a little starstruck. You know what I'm saying? You meet your hero, you be like, man, I'm just gonna chill out over here in the corner and that's it.
Hi, hi.
Yeah, yeah. Hi, how you doing? But yeah, man, that's what gives me the confidence and the realization of what it is that I do and what I'm able to do. And from that, man, I go off like, any and everything is wide open in terms of the creative space that I'm allowed to operate in or that I find myself in. So yeah, man. Short and simple answer. It was all over
Oh,
a
no,
girl.
no, that's fantastic. It's, over the time of doing the show, one of the things that you come across is always that nexus point, right? That Marvel creation story, right? That happens. It's
Mhm.
always wonderful. I remember walking in the same with you, just like, playing around with words and such. And then I happened to walk into the New Eureka one night and seeing like 400 or 500 people silent, like you could hear a pin drop. I was like, okay, this is something, you know what I mean? So there's always that point that pushes. Um, so I have one question because this is the burning question that's at the tip of everyone's tongue right now in the environment. This is just you see it everywhere. So 500,000 or lunch with Jay Z?
Jay already told us what to do. Jay said, take the money. Jay said, take the money. I left everything for you in the albums. I'm like, Jay, you didn't have to tell me that. I was been to I was 500 off gate.
Exactly. Exactly.
500.
That you gonna tell me something that's gonna make me more than that 500 at that moment guaranteed. I don't understand what the conversation is.
And it's such a weird question because I think some people have to look at it at the age that they are. Now, if you'd have told me that when I was 20 something, and Jay is who Jay is, I probably would have taken the dinner with Jay.
Right,
Because thinking I just need to be in the room with the man to soak in his knowledge.
right.
Now that I'm a little
And
bit
slip them
older,
slip him some of your rhymes, so you can get that.
different. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because we're young and hungry. I need you to listen to my demo, cuz like I ain't listening to no damn demo. So
Exactly.
it's his idea too that, yeah, how old are you when you're answering this question? Now that I'm 40 plus, yeah, I'm taking that 500 all day because now I know what to do with it, right? I've lived enough of the experiences of what I want. And you're right. There's what could Jay-Z tell me
Right.
that I don't already know? And could he even really help? Now that's a wild question. Of course he could, but also, if I look at all the experiences I've done in my world as a spoken word artist, I've never seen Jay dabble in that world. So what could you tell me? We already had in my list of names that I was going after anyway. So yeah,
So
give me that money, guys. Give me that money.
exactly. No, I hear you. I hear you. I just as that came up, I was like, I gotta ask. I gotta ask Blues this question. So you rep the South, and you rep the South hard. You know,
Horde.
Howard, exactly. How has that impacted your work?
That is a great question, Shaka, because the Southern experience, I always say, is a unique one. Not that any Black experience is not a unique one in this country, right? And globally, especially as Americans, right? As we find ourselves. But I think for us, there is this sense of source that this Black experience comes from chattel slavery, from where we are to where we've spread out in this country. The diaspora sort of starts in Charleston, if you will, right? But it is uniquely to say there is a different language here. It's a different way we eat. It is also the challenges of being a Black Southerner and being viewed by other African Americans, Blacks in this country as less than, as less educated than, as less savvy then. There was a post in this group that I'm in that said, no one from the South can out hustle someone from the North. That they moved to Charlotte and they saw, you know, they saw everything they needed to see, which I get. I get in context where that comes from. Being in New York, you have to hustle, right? You're in the mix of everything. But that is to say that down here is not a hustle. Down here is not a fight to survive in so many different myriads in so many different ways. So when we start thinking about how do you tell that story through a poetic lens, it 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 gets a little funky. It gets a little soulful. It gets a little bluesy. It gets a little rock and roll. It gets a little gospely. It gets all of those things because of where these stories and these ideas come up from slavery, from the plantation, from the beginning of all of it. And we still get to continue to tell that story in a very unique way. And I also say, because we're also dealing with some sort of ground zero racism here, right? It's the South. And there's also this idea that they say North Carolina is not the South. And I'm like, yo,
It's,
how? Like,
it's
how do
kind
you
of
come up
silly.
with this idea? And I realize some of that is trolling, but some people get this thing because there's money here, there's an articulation or whatever that it's still not the South. Man, you could drive 10 minutes outside of Charlotte and be in the country. In the country. You could be in a South that looks just like Alabama South, that looks like a Georgia South, that looks like a Mississippi South. So all of these things play into the idea of where you are, the sense of where you are being raised, where you are getting this black experience, this particular black cultural experience, and and then how do you maneuver that into a way that doesn't again make people look at you that you are less than, that you are not educated enough. It's wild, Shaka. It's a wild question, but yeah, being from the South, it is a very unique thing. It to put it into slam terms, when we won the championship in 2007 and 8 or 8 and 9, it was unexpected. They thought it was a fluke the first time, and then when we did it again, they were like, "Oh, they about that work."
Right.
But it was a rising of Southern Black voices. It was a rising of these Black poets from the South that was people started paying attention to it. Now, I won't say that was because of us.
I was.
Well, I mean, but these people had been here, right? So this is something we already knew. Like, we're just a small percentage of the dopeness that is down here. But it helped, right? It helped. But it's this fighting back against the idea that, as Andre would say, South got something to say. And we did, and we do, we continue to. And I just hate fighting against the stereotype that we're not educated enough to be in these high society, hoity-toity, bourgeoisie conversations about literature and, the grammar of and blah 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 blah. Like, come on, Shaq, we here. We can talk.
Yes.
We can talk good or we can talk like this. What you want? We can do
Look,
either.
but that's the thing, it's so funny because there's so many things that are coming to my mind. It's like the idea of when someone's from a foreign country and they come and it's like you talk funny and we downplay that person. And it's almost like, that person at this moment is speaking another language you don't, right? Like they're starting at two, you walking at one. So it's just funny how we sort of, I mean, we miss that, and just the conversation that it's kind of you brought it out even more is that this conversation about like the New York and the hustle from the South. It's like you take a step back and it's a different variation of the same song. You know what I mean? It's like New York
Mhm,
was the destination. The South is where folks was coming from. You know what I mean?
mhm.
So whereas one is like, oh, we're talking from the space of being here. The other is the space of like leaving or the like you said, ground zero, right? How do
Right.
you how do you look at ground zero and say that's less than? It's all this other stuff that they pour on top of us as a whole, and to create this separation. I'm about to get on my soapbox, and you
Come
see
on, man. Come on, Shaq, preach.
You see it in hip hop as well, right? It's the same thing in hip hop that they try and layer on top of this. And like we all, like you said, we all got something to say, man. We all got something to
Yeah.
say. Something
Yeah,
to
man.
So I got my next question for you. Got a little bit of a preamble, and part of this is sort of the audience. I want them to understand the type of individual that we're talking to, that we're dealing with, right? Is, when I think about the years ago and when I first started getting into slam, and you're hungry, you get in there, and you hear names, right? You hear names and like this aura. Yours is one that always popped up, right? Even before I actually met you. And so, so the first part is giving your flowers, right? In the sense that like your aura walks in the room before you even walk in the room. I want you to know that. You know what I mean? Like you carry a presence with you that I'm not even sure that you completely know. And this is beyond the stuff you do. Like the stuff you do is recognition of who you are as an individual. So I want to do that. An example of that is something that I caught on recently on social, right? And you put this quote from Dave Chappelle, right? Be the most powerful dreamer in the room, be wise enough to know you are living in your own powerful dream, and humble enough to know when you're living in someone else's. He says, tonight I'm on stage because of the power of my own dream, but can't help but feel I'm living in yours right now, and it feels like the safest place to be. So that's the Dave Chappelle. Now, your piece to that, just randomly going out to folks, right, is as a creator, a performer, a writer, etc. I can't begin to tell you how powerful that message is right now. So often we're trying to live out our dreams, and that's cool, but I can't tell you how many times I've watched my friends shine. And in that moment, I realized that I'm living their dream. And Dave is right. It feels like the most wonderful and safest place to be. That to me, like I had to read that like 2, 3 times, and for a couple of reasons. One, it shot me right to that meme. I don't know if you've seen it, where the two kids are standing at the table, and one opens a box of sneakers, and it's the friend that goes buck. That's just
Yeah.
crazy. Right?
He was like, yeah.
Yeah, you want friends like that. And there's so much in that statement that talks about like, how who you are as an individual, and yes, I've got my thing I'm doing. But it's like, if what I get out of that is if I eat, you eat. You know what I mean? And so I wanted to lay that out for folks so they know who we're talking to today. But when you think about the dream, when you think about touching on the dream and the journey that it takes me to our younger generation, right? Our kids and our youth. And we both have daughters that are whatever age, going on 35 or 42. However, but how do you think poetry can connect with and resonate with this younger generation, considering all the things that they're having to manage and deal with?
Yeah, man. I think poetry and comedy are sort of these last bastions of true art
Mm.
through simple voice, through simple perspective. These kids, these young folks are experiencing life that we could never probably truly understand, right? We give these young people a lot of shit, right? We do. Oh,
Of
you're
course.
soft. We used to hang out all night, da da da. Granted, we did because our parents were working, but that was a very dangerous way to grow up, right? Very dangerous way to grow up. But now, like, our kids are dealing with mass shootings, they're dealing with pandemics, they're dealing with social media being invasive. Like, our school bully was always at school. Like, when we got off the bus, we knew we were gonna have to deal with him. When we got on the bus, it was over, right? But now it is in their phones, it's in their hands, it's in television. It's a constant bombardment of something or someone influencing you, right? And so now I hope that these kids are understanding the power of who they are to speak against someone trying to tell you who you should be, right?
Mhm.
And using poetry to say, this is who I am, this is how I want to express myself. And this is how I identify, right? Because of course you and I, we grew up in a world where you are either identified as this or you identified as that. And that was it. Like those are the two things that you was gonna be. Even
Mhm.
if they didn't fit you and you just felt weird all the time, right? But now these kids have this open air conversation to say, okay, this is who I am, this is who I feel like, and this is how I want to express myself. And the poetry allows you to say that in
Mhm.
such a colorful and vivid way. And because of this beautiful technology that we are on right now, your world is so small, but yet so connected. So you can find community that is in Bangladesh. You can find community that is in Madagascar. You can find community that is around the corner,
Yeah.
right? So as invasive as it might be, it is also a connector.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful the way that these younger folks are using this technology to connect, to voice who they are and what they want to be in such a powerful way. And I always wonder, like, if we had Instagram and Twitter when we were in high school, some of us would have been great, and some of us would have been ruined.
Exactly. You be on your, you be the 35th president. I'd be the 38th president. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's so true, everything you're saying, and especially what resonated is in the beginning is how we get on. Because, I got a 13-year-old, so I'm on her, sometimes probably more than I should be, but I'm on her. But at the
Right,
same, I'm saying stuff like, you watching TV on your phone, drawing and doing something else at the same time. You can't possibly be paying attention and giving. And then she's like, no, this is what's happening on the so and so. This is what I'm doing here, and this is what I'm doing here, and I just drew this all at the same time. And I'm like, the capacity now to do and to hold all this stuff is amazing, and it wasn't there before. We're just, so there is, to your point, it's like there, yes, we get on them, but there is something that's evolving, so to speak, for lack of a better word, that's allowing our children to, like you said, find this place, right? Find these touches and who's in my world and who do I relate to and who the, which is an amazing thing, I think, for the world as a whole. We're
yeah.
not, it's not linear. Linear, it's not linear. They need to find their space, which is I'm happy about. I just hope it don't happen too fast, right? It's just like, can we pace it?
Listen, we're living in. I feel you. Like, I hope it slows down enough, but the way things are going, I think that's why these kids' brains operate the way they do so fast, because the way this world is moving at such a rapid pace. I was on Instagram and the ads will pop in. And there was this there was an ad for diabetes.
Hmm.
And it said famous diabetics. And it was Oprah, Steve Harvey, and two other people. But anyway, they were using AI to talk as if they were them, to say, hey, here's what I use to get rid of my diabetes. They were saying, I no longer have diabetes because of this thing that I am using. And I sent it to a few people. I'm like, this is where we are now,
Right.
where these sort of deep fake things are happening. And then again, our children have to process what that is, right? They have to process what this older generation of people that they may not naturally connect with. And for me, I know what Oprah sounds like. I know what Steve Harvey sounds like. It's like that's close, but I know that's not them. They may not know that, right? They may like, oh wow, I didn't know, all this was Oprah's thing, and now she's got. So now they're processing all those things, and I'm just like, God bless them, man. Their brains are overload, overload. And I can see why now some of these kids are like, I need a mental break. I need a mental break for sure.
Because no, you gotta find
Uh-oh. Getting a little trouble here.
I see Tshaka, his camera has stalled, but that doesn't
Yeah,
have to stall the conversation.
it's all good. Shaka, you got to get
Okay.
that Wi-Fi together, brother. Let's go.
Yeah, so I will just go ahead and ask you to share one of your favorite stories about yourself, about one of your, I'm going to say unusual experiences.
There's probably so many. I will share a star moment since he's on here with the mighty Mike McGee. Um, it was Albuquerque, New Mexico, and this was around the time where Def Poetry Jam was the thing, and DVDs were the thing that you watched to study and see all your heroes. So our coach at the time, Terry Creech, had us watching Rachel McGibbons, Anis Manjari, a lot of folks, and Mike McGee, right? And Mike's style was something that I adored because while my poetry can be serious, I like to do funny stuff. I like to say there's a whole side of me that is not always angry and black and sad. I skateboard. I sometimes listen to heavy metal. I enjoy pudding, you know. To see Mike do his thing was amazing.
Okay.
For some reason, we were driving somewhere and Mike needed a ride. So Mike McGee, I think I was in the car with Terry. Mighty Mike McGee jumps in like he's not a fucking rock star in this car. And I'm like, oh my God, Mike McGee is in the same car that I'm riding in. Gotta keep my cool. Don't lose your shit. That's what I was keep it cool. And it was the energy that I saw through the screen was the same love and energy that was resonating through the actual human being that was in the car. And that was refreshing because sometimes we meet our heroes and they are dicks. And so Mike was genuine through and through. He is as funny, if not even more, as a person by himself when he's not performing. So the same person you get through this performative aspect is cool, but the actual person that you just get to have a conversation with is great. He's hilarious and funny and fun and insightful. And the one thing Mike, I remember you saying is ranch is nothing but mayo and pepper, or something you said a while ago, and it was hilarious. I'm like, that's so true. That is so true. So that's like one of my sort of in my younger days meeting one of my hero stories. Which is great, Mike, man. I don't think I've ever told you that. Like I was completely freaking out in that truck that day, bro. Like it was
I'm
crazy.
That's
I,
awesome.
I I'm thoroughly honored, and I don't really know what to say other than that I have been a fan of yours since day one,
Oh man.
and
Uh,
so it's I was getting into the car of somebody who I appreciated in equal measure. So,
Yeah. And he needed a ride.
and I needed a ride.
yeah, and it was just a simple thing. And I'm like, Mighty Mike McGee needs a ride. And I'm like, does he not have like a spaceship or a limo that he just has on call? But I was like, nope, it's us. We're gonna give him the ride and he's gonna get where he's going because we're in the car with him. So it was super dope. I love that.
That's
And I
awesome.
think there's Shaka. You good,
Yes.
bro?
Dude, the internet was like, you are not going to talk bad about technology. Like nothing else in the house. Everything was good. It just cut. It was like, I'm going to give you 4 minutes to breathe a little bit, and then we'll get back.
Listen, the
That's
internet is on their
okay.
United Auto Workers energy, bro. Like, oh, word?
Yes.
Detroit shut down.
That's okay. We got this. Teamwork.
I appreciate it. That was so crazy. I was like, it did not just cut off when I said something bad about technology. Anyway, all right. I know you guys were chatting. I don't want to did you guys, I don't want to interrupt or whatever, but
Oh,
if you had a vibe going on or whatever.
Nah, you picked the perfect time, bro.
yes,
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
did. Perfect
Cool.
timing.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna jump right back in. I won't talk about that thing anymore. So we'll just keep it here. What has been your funniest moment that you can remember that you could share, like in your poetry world, whether it be slam or whatever the case may
Um,
be?
well, I just shared this story about being in the same car with Mike for like the first time. Um, I guess funniest moment, man. They're all pretty hilarious. I think if people realized how some of their favorite poets are low-key comedians and probably just rude, terrible people, like,
Gee,
they'll be like, "Oh, you're just a regular dude."
like,
Um, right. I think one of the funniest moments, and it's probably non-poetry like related in the setting, but it involves poets. It would be Oakland, California, and the poets had organized a basketball game, right?
oh,
And so it was Shihan was there, Javon was there, a couple of other poets. But the one poet that was the most unassuming, and I did not realize how competitive this person was, Rudy Francisco. So
yes.
Rudy is a basketball head. Like, if you don't know anything else about Mr. Francisco, know that he knows his basketball and can hoop. So we are out there, pickup game, and it's getting heated to the point where Rudy is like, and he'll probably hate me for telling the story, but it's the one I remember and it's hilarious. It's Rudy's out there and the game is tight. Cats is fouling, right? Nobody wants to lose.
Right.
Rudy has the ball and says, check, throws the ball at the guy, like a hard, like, check.
Yeah.
The guy pushes it back. He said, check. How much can I cuss, Tshaka?
Do you.
Said, check, motherfucker. And I was like, Rudy Francisco, what are you doing? In my brain, I'm like, yo, yo. So I had never seen, I've only seen Rudy like on stage and maybe a couple of conversations. You know, Rudy, it's all calm.
Yes.
It's all good, peaceful. Yo, that basketball court brought out a fucking monster. I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God.
I
Bro,
heard about that.
it was so funny to me. I'm like, wow. So yeah, not exactly like in the poetry realm on a stage or behind a mic kind of thing, but it was seeing poets be actual people, right? Be actual dudes from the block, be actual dudes who survived a thing, and that survival instincts kick in particular moments.
Yeah.
And you get to be reminded of that. And for me in that moment, it was shocking and hilarious because again, if y'all know Rudy, just picture Rudy doing his best poem, maybe the one about his daughter or about love or something else. And then a basketball comes out and he says, check motherfucking ball. And you're like, oh,
Who is
I
this?
did not know it was about to go down. So it was great, man. That might be one of like the funniest moments I've had in a poetry world like that, though. Like,
I love it.
hilarious.
But it's so true what you said. It's like where, folks they're regular people, right? And so especially in the slam world, it's like you get, and that's part of what this show is about, right? You get 3 minutes, right, of like this person. There's no way you can really understand sort of, like you said, the intricacies of what led to becoming this individual that's on stage in front of you. But that's such a great story. And it talks to the fact that like folks are real people, right?
Yeah.
And that's so dope. That's why I think, when they talk about you want to know the history of a time period, don't go to the textbooks, go to the poets, because those are the real people in the moment that is telling you there's no political agenda. It's like, this is what it is. This
Right.
is come through, you know what I mean? And
Exactly.
that's so deep. Another question for you. So what's your favorite, who's your favorite rapper?
Andre 3000 all day.
3 Stacks.
Yeah. Three stacks, man.
All right.
Uh,
Okay. I don't
a
even have to ask
retired.
why.
Say what?
I said, I don't even have to ask why.
Oh yeah, you already know. You already
Yeah,
know. Yeah,
exactly.
his his ability to put words together and paint a picture at the same time, and his nuances to every man, it's just he dope. He goat. That's
Yeah.
it.
It's
Yeah.
such a loss, man. There's such a gap. There's
Yeah.
such a gap without him here. You know what I mean? So
Oh man, listen, you
yeah,
telling me.
I know, right? So what lessons have you learned about life from being in this craft, right? And when I say lessons you like these are lessons, a lesson that you would pass on to your daughter.
Ooh, baby girl, trust your voice. And I mean that in the literal and sort of this, metaphorical, whatever kind of sense, like literally trust how you sound to
Right,
people, to yourself.
right,
Um, for me, because I know me, like I've got a couple of projects recorded, and it's hard for me to listen to myself because I think I sound weird, right? It's just hard for me to listen. I know it's dope because
mm,
people are like, "Oh, it's dope," and I can, everything is confirming that
right,
it's dope.
right.
It's all confirming it's dope. But then you be like, "Ooh, why do I sound like that?" You know?
Exactly.
You're like, "Why do I sound like that?" But for them, when I hear them, it is this confirmation of power, of recognizing who they are. And there's such confidence in that I don't ever want them to lose that if they should hear themselves again, right? That I
Uh-huh.
don't want you to hear yourself and then second guess what you've heard. Now, baby, stand on what you said, stand on what you said, and then recognize the power of your own creativity in that aspect of as well. My oldest, she's 22 now, and she's I call her a champ. She did one sort of poetry contest and won, and then she's never done another one after that. So I was like, "Oh, you went out with that top record," and she was like, she she did it because it was part of the class, but she's into dance and a bunch of other things. I have a feeling that the writing will come back to her later in life, as
Mhm.
it did for a lot of us. You know what I'm saying? Like we didn't really get good till we got older. Until life
Life
lifed us,
happens. Yep.
till life lifed us, and now we out here. But um, I think they'll discover some sort of creative passion, and it may not be poetry, but if it is, then I would say trust your voice and trust who you are, your personality. It just because the world sees you as a young black girl doesn't mean that's how you need to show up for the world. My babies love K-pop, and if they write 19 books on K-pop poetry, then I would understand that. I'd be like, that's your world, baby. That's who you are. Because I think they get who they are as young black girls. They get that, right? They understand that. But you know, when we have an experience that may be traumatic or sad or whatever, we don't always want to live that, right? Especially through the art. If the art helps us heal through it, then we don't always want to revisit it. And sort of, if I'm going to have this moment, it's my problem with slam poets sometimes. Like, why are you putting your trauma up for sale? Why are you trying to give that heartache a fucking score, bro? Like, let it go. Like, deal with it somewhere else. But anyway, to each his own. I say that though to my babies, like, be who you want to be, write how you want to write. Trust your voice. If it's weird, go full weird, baby. It's all good. You can do what you want. Look at your dad. Dad's weird as hell. So
I love it, man. It talks to what you said about like them, where we get to in life, and how that sort of gets us to a point in our poetry, but we've had to live that life, right? They got to come into themselves, and then that's where it sparks. You mentioned, loss and pain, and now I know recently there's been a number of losses in the art and the poetry world, like across the board. Some of this comes just with age, like we was getting at we're getting at that age. But how have you managed to sort of cope through this? And it's kind of two parts. How have you managed to cope through? And is loss in this craft different than loss in like regular life?
dang, bro, I didn't know he was getting this deep. Um, Me personally, I I may not deal with loss in a healthy way.
Mhm.
But it is my way, right? Um, I am a child. I'm a Air Force brat. So we spent a lot of time moving around. Maybe in a place for 2 years, maybe three, maybe a couple months. Like it's always on the move. So there's never really time to settle into anything.
Mhm.
And at some point you realize that these friends are not going to be my friends in another year,
Mhm.
may not be my friends in another 2 years. So I'm going to enjoy you while I can, but I'm not going to be fully committed to this friendship.
Right.
And this is me at 11, 12 years old with these ideas of there's going to be constant change, there's going to be constant move, just be prepared to go. Don't get settled here. Don't get
Right.
settled here. It is not until I'm a little bit older and have started experiencing death in a way that it's closer to me. We hear about someone dying, but it wasn't nobody close to me, right?
Right.
So I experienced death with someone closer to me, and I'm like, okay, this person is gone. I gotta keep going, right?
Yeah.
In my mind, I was like, I just gotta keep going. I gotta keep going, and it's it's to a point now where I I am old enough to know that I can write this stuff down, remember them that way, and then go back and have these funny moments. So one of my very best friends, Tavis Brunson, passed away, and
Mhm.
um, I got to see him a few times. Um, and it was the night he died, I went to see, he was in a coma. The night he died, well, it wasn't the night he died. It was just the last time I saw him. He was in a coma.
Mhm.
On my way back home, there was a truck that had flipped, and a family was just on the ground. The mother was, you know, holding the daughter. I went and grabbed, everybody's pulling over to help, to help these people. And I'm like, this is some wild shit. And in my brain, I was like, yo, I just left my friend, and it may be the last time I see him. And now I'm out here experiencing what life could be, what death is. And the whole time I'm just thinking, Tavis would have said, don't help these white folks. And it would have been just funny because there was just some young white girls, and he'd have been like, don't help these white girls because they're gonna get you. And it was that, right? That was the coping mechanism, to laugh at something that would have been funny for him to say, would have been a petty little joke. And that is the coping mechanism. And I think that is sort of the the thing that we encircle around my community of folks who know us, the poets that know us. We make joke, we make light of, we try to laugh through that kind of pain, but also recognize that we are hurting, right? At the same time, it is a very Gen X thing to do, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Ha ha ha. And
Uh,
you still owe me $10. You know what I'm saying? Ha 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 ha.
exactly. Exactly.
Which,
Messed up
which
his
is why I
messed up
said
his
it's
blue
probably
jacket with that bullet.
right, right, right. Exactly, exactly. It's like that's why I say it's probably not the most healthy way to do it, but it is the way that we've learned to do it and not tear down the world in the process, right? Um, because dealing with loss can affect you in different ways and can project in different ways. So dealing with loss in the poetry world and the real world sometimes feel the same. Um, for me, loss in the poetry world would always look like a slam that I lost, right? And I took that hard, hard, bro. I am super competitive. And if I lose, I am livid. I am upset. And I'm upset more so at the judges. Like,
Yeah.
judges don't know, it's always judges don't know no real poetry. And I try not to get mad or upset at the poet who beat me, because that's me judging their art. That's me
Right.
judging their experience. And I can't do that. I can only be mad at the people judging those who should be judged. So that sense of loss uh was effectively saying, I put something of my own self up here and you felt like it wasn't better than or worthy enough to win. So now I am upset at that part. And now I'm upset at myself for putting myself in that situation to be judged. And so it is all this culmination of things inside just that poetry world kind of thing. But as it translates to loss in the real world, I've loss to me is, I've had a car repoed before, and that was like, now what am I supposed to do? And how could they take the one thing that I was using to get to work? Da, 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 da. I'm like, but you know what? It's all on you, bro. Like, did you pay the bill? Did you do everything you're supposed to do to make sure everything worked? And I have to be like, okay, I got to sit with myself on that. So at the end of the day, when I'm considering loss in the poetry world and the real world, I always have to look dead at myself and say, how do I own the responsibility of what I did, and then process that. So that was a long way to get to your answer, but
that was beautiful, man. That's exactly what I was trying to get at, because like we said, we're dealing with all of this in the world around us, and I think I want folks to understand that, like, the poetry, not better than or less than, but the poetry community is this almost separate. There's this separate entity within these folks that see the world a certain way, have the same kind of experience. There is real life that feeds into it, but they're two like very distinguished worlds. And I just wanted to really talk about like how some of that stuff bleeds into each other, but how there's definitely separate pieces to it as well. So no, that was perfect. That's exactly what I was trying to get at. I do want to get some time before, because there's a couple of sections of this, right? There's me talking to you, want to definitely have you read for us a bit. And then I have the last section, which is like a quick fire section I want to get to. But before we get to the book, I have two questions for you. One is, in the profile, it mentions the book is an ode to the true essence of the culture. What does that mean to you? What were you saying there?
For me, it was the elements, right? The b-boy, the b-girl, the DJ, the graffiti artist, the MC, these four basic elements to hip hop. And then, folks will argue, well, there's like 19 different elements. I'm like, all right, I'm not going that far into it, bro. I'm just gonna stick with the four tenets here. But it was this dedication to those four simple tenets, that for the person who may be just entering the culture, maybe just accessing the culture for the first time, can understand it from that point. And to boil it down, and maybe that's not the right term, but to get it down to a haiku meant I'm going to have to find these exacting words that fit, that describe, that solidify the idea of each one of these particular artists or movements or whatever that was going on with hip hop at the time. So that's kind of what I meant. Like it was a real sort of deep dive and drill down into the core of it, as close as I could get. As close as I could get.
With a haiku, you have like the economy of language that has to happen with a haiku. You got to dig into it. So super excited about that. Next question I have before you jump in is, when you were thinking about putting this book together, did you have a specific audience in mind that you wanted this to hit? Like, when you got done and wrote this, was it like, okay, this is going to be for these folks? Or
it was the hip hop community. Like, I really wanted to press the homies in the cipher. That's at the end of the day, if it was a cipher full of cats, I wanted to spit the best bar so everybody in the cipher would be like, yeah, that kid did it. Or if we was in a breakdancing circle, oh yeah, he did it. Or if we was like, whoever was within the cipher of the culture, that's who I was trying to hit. And if it moved past that, if it moved outside of that into the audience of it, then that's great. And they're understanding what they're looking at. But at the end of the day, I just wanted to make the homies proud, man. And I think I think writing it and coming up with that perspective allowed me to stay a little bit truer to what I wanted to do. Because when you start
Gotcha.
looking outside of that, then you're like, oh, I got to make sure the kid out in Kansas understands what I'm talking about, or I don't want to offend anybody down in Georgia, or what I'm saying, you start asking way too many questions, and again, not trusting the voice of what you wanted to do. But if you say, yo, here are the cats that I want to hit, who'll know, who'll get it, anybody else, you're welcome. Here's a beautiful surprise for you.
Gotcha. All right, perfect. I know I said I had two questions, but this is my shit, so I have another one.
Hey, bro.
Because it's what you're bringing in is, because I'm in the space as well. This blend of like poetry and then music and how it interconnects. Like, how does that? I guess how does that present for you, right? Because some say, okay, there's poetry, then like there's stuff that you do, music and events and such. Like, how is it the same thing for you, or do you see them separately and connected by a thread? Like, what does that mean for you?
And I think this may go back to our earlier question about what it means to be Southern. There's always, for me, music connected to the words and the sound of what I'm doing. There's always musicality in our voice, right? And I think that was given to us by the ancestors as a meaning of survival, from the field holler to singing in the belly of that beast to get through that ocean. There's always a rhythm and a sound to what we are. You can hear it in a Southern gospel preacher. You can hear it there. You can hear it in the moans of a blues song. You can hear it everywhere, dog. In the way we talk to each other is sometimes music. So yeah, for me, the poetry and the music always intertwine and intersect and connect, simply because it just wants to find cadence. It wants to connect to home. It wants to connect to a people, an element, anything, and that transcends beyond race. Though that just says my voice and my poetry want to connect to anything that has this harmony in it, and it finds its way, right? It finds its way to a particular audience or people, which I think when you have super successful artists and they go beyond, like Prince transcends a lot of things, right? Between race, people, demographics, because he writes from a place of such a human experience. And of course, he sounds amazing when he does it. But I think anybody who could just read Prince's lyrics would have that same connectability because there is such music in the way that he writes. And there are a lot of poets who can do that, who are super successful because there is such a harmony and melody in the way that they talk, just the way that they talk. Like, and there's to that effect, there are poets who get away with some shit, right? Because there is such a melody and rhythm to what they do that you're like, you ain't really saying nothing, cuz, but I get it. Like, I get it. I'm gonna let it rock. I'm gonna let it rock. But yeah, man, for me, they live in the same house and they cohabitate and they're raising some amazing children.
Absolutely. All right, look, I'm gonna give you some space to give us some work. It can be from a book, it could be anything that you want, and then when you're done, we'll jump into a couple more questions.
Okay. Let's see, man. Listen, so I'm gonna share something super, super, super new. Like I was working on it yesterday. It's unfinished new. So this new book that I'm working on is called Wooden Nickels for a Melancholy Jukebox. And the idea, these poems are based around songs, based around artists, particularly artists who died when they were super young. So we're talking Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, Jimi Hendrix, like that 27 Club. Um, but some of these songs also have a reverberation of taking the song and the Black experience and the sadness of it. So I heard Talking Heads once in a lifetime, and I sort of reworked it. But it is this. And you may find yourself in the belly of a slave ship, and you may find yourself shackled and sold at auction, and you may find yourself taking your master's name on his plantation, and you may find yourself in the middle of a southern summer picking cotton, looking for Harriet Tubman, and you may find yourself asking God, how did I get here? And you may find yourself running from slave catchers, and you may find yourself running from police officers, and you may find yourself in the driveway of your house, and you may find yourself on a balcony at the Laureate Hotel, and you may find yourself in the Autobahn ballroom, and you may find yourself face down on the concrete, and you may find yourself in the belly of the beast, and you may find yourself handcuffed and lifeless, and you may find yourself in the casket, and God may ask you, how did you get here? Same as it ever was, same as it ever was, same as it ever was, same as it ever was. So yeah, man, that's just something I'm working through. Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Something I'm working through, man. And it's a work in progress, but I appreciate that, man, for sure.
That's dope. That's dope. You got, I mean, you got a good 10 minutes, dude, to rock if you want.
Oh, okay. Let's do this. So as I said, one of my favorite top tier, Andre 3000 all day. And so when Andre dropped that verse for Dear Donda, Tshaka, I have never cried from a hip hop song. There's never been a hip hop verse that make me shed a tear. Bro, when I heard this, I listened to it twice and I was mad that Andre made me cry. But I was like, you know what? That is the power. That is the authenticity of Andre 3000. Like it didn't feel like a farce or a lie. He's talking to his mom. Anyway, here goes the poem. He came up from the dungeon, rapping for respect to playing double flute all across the country. From Philly, Atlanta to Portland, this journey is most important. It's a reminder that we're all transforming, growing as we get older. In a world where you're expected to stay on a certain trajectory, a particular course, like they expected you and Big Boy to stay slamming them Cadillac doors, but of course, you discovered a different way to make noise. The sound in your voice speaker box up from a love below, and lo and behold, we began to watch the story of a goat unfold. Every verse you wrote or freestyled off the dome felt like an ode, a note to God, put God in the bars, and hey, here we are, wondering if the verse you wrote for Miss Donda should have been something we considered penning for our own mother and father. Wandering farther and farther, wondering if we honor them with our outcome. Like, how come some of us ain't landed like the way our parents planned it? Some of us failed to launch because there wasn't any real resources or proper planning, because too often the guardians of our little galaxies was working so many shifts to secure our survival, there was barely time to fuel our dreams. And that's probably the story of a lot of Black parents on this planet, wanting their children to be amongst the stars, and half the battle was figuring out how to get them off the block. It's hard, but not impossible, because we've seen it, watching Black lives that weren't supposed to survive or even come to grips with an untouchable zenith and stacks. You wrote something so heartfelt and genius, something we didn't know we needed until Aubrey leaked it. This poem is a thank you, and I love you, and an apology for all those rap lists that put weaker writers above you. And I know you would say some shit like, I don't care about no list, what my rank is among the greatest. I just want to make music for the generations. And I know that the name Andre Benjamin will forever be synonymous with the gift of imagination and inspiration, no matter how many solo albums you did or did not make. Legends like you never fade away. They take a break, figure themselves out, reinvent, learn an instrument, then occasionally remind the world that they are still relevant, important reflections of a mother's determination to make sure her son shined and kept growing. And ain't that all our mamas? Ain't we all just trying to make sure we grow not to be a broken promise? Because somewhere in our souls, we are all writing a letter that starts off, "Dear Miss Donda." Yeah, man. So yeah, that's been like one of my favorite joints to do thus far, bruh.
Yeah.
And so we got time for one more. We talked about the rhythm of, you know, how there's music in sort of the work that I do. And this particular poem, so this is a wild story. I did reenactments like almost maybe 15 years ago, maybe 17 years ago, at this little place called Rattonsville Plantation. Yeah. It's the same place that they shot The Patriot, right? So this woman named Miss Kitty, she's an amazing storyteller, amazing story. She got me into this thing. So I played a slave, right? And this was the summer, it was July, was it June or July? Doesn't matter. Summer in the South. Um, and they didn't have shoes for me to wear because I had the whole garb. Like it's a reenactment thing, a full thing. And I was like, man, they probably didn't even have no shoes back then because I don't need no shoes. I'm going barefoot, right? So here's me thinking I'm Denzel or whoever. Walk outside barefoot. He immediately suns me like, yo, it's hot out. So I'm like dancing around trying to find shade, like, oh my God, it's so hot. But it's in that moment that I realized, yo, if this was for real and Harriet shows up, you gotta go, cuz. Like, feet be damned. It's your feet or freedom. Pick. Pick. And I was like, yo, this is what you would have to do. These are the choices people had to make. And before I jump into it, it reminds me when people say I'm not my ancestors, whatever, whatever. No, you're not. You're not. Because the choices they had to make, cuz you could never make that choice. You can never make that choice. So the poem is called Run. They say a train is coming, and it's coming to take me to see my mama. It's coming to take me to see my children. Now they say this train come out of the night sky from the deepest quiet of dark when the earth don't move and the wind don't blow. They say this train move as fast as the imagination of Jesus, and you ain't gotta have no money to get on board, just gotta have a desire to get free. Gotta want them shackles off your feet, gotta want your lungs to breathe sweet freedom. And when the train come, you best follow the path and run. Run. Run past slave quarters and cotton fields. Run. Run past that big house and that hanging tree that hung strange fruit, never grew no leaves. You better run over the hill now, then stop. Child, be still. Don't make a sound, 'cause I can hear those bloodhounds bark and howl. Slavery! You better run past your grandfather's grave plot through fields of marigold and lilac as the cold air kisses the whelps on your back. You better run, run with your right hand to the sunrise until the earth cries tears of slavery blood. You better run, run past the sharecroppers, run past men with calloused hands, run past women with slave brands. Despite their own needs, they still raised our children. We gotta run from the back of the bus, run from and from Tuskegee, run from a fatal shot in Memphis, Tennessee. We gotta run to the funeral of a martyr. We gotta run from a bombed out church where 4 black fathers lost 4 black daughters. We gotta run from guns that X'd out Allah's precious son. We gotta run to the Summer Olympics, win the gold and raise a proud black fist like this. We gotta run into the turning of the century, and I will not stop running until my daughter makes presidential history. We gotta run through the riots and Watts and ghettos and vacant lots and Wall Street stocks. We gotta run until the dawning of the sun, run till they don't know which way we coming from. We gotta run the $1 million contracts, run the gospel hymns and gangster raps. We gotta run and don't look back. Said we gotta run and don't look back. We gotta run to the Supreme Court so peace will finally find peace for our forefathers. We gotta run to first base as a Brooklyn Dodger. We gotta run to the moon for Ron McNair. His spirit will gladly meet you there. We gotta run from the death of AIDS and crack. We gotta run to get all these families back. We gotta run from the officer's nightstick. Reminds me of the pain of the overseer's whip. We gotta run to this cloud of ignorance lives, and our children recognize their spiritual gifts. We gotta run until they realize that the revolution will not be televised. We gotta run from the mountaintop to the valley low. Run till we ain't gotta run no more. We gotta run till there ain't no more air to breathe. Run till God say it's time to leave. We gotta run until you believe. Said we gotta run until you believe. We gotta run till we ain't gotta run no more. I got the keys to your shackles. Y'all ready to go? Cool.
All of that, man. All of that.
Appreciate it, brother.
I thank you, man. I could just sit there and listen to you all day. There's you talk about cadence and musicality, and there's so much of that. There's so much of that in your work and just in your language of how it just how it blends and how it it's like almost I'm geeking out here because it's almost like when you have musical artists or a drum player or something like that, and they hear something, they're like, oh, you hear the drum there and the snare and the so and so under, and then everyone's like, I don't even hear what I hear the guitar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like you can hear all of those levels, all of those intricacies within the work and the language, man. It's so fulling. You leave full.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I got a couple more questions for you. If this book, if my haikus was a basketball player, who would it be?
Woo, boy, oh boy, oh boy. Wow. Mm. Oh, Tshaka, man, come on. E-
It's morning over here. We fresh.
I know y'all fresh on it. Because now I'm thinking generations of I immediately want to say Kobe,
Right.
right? But I also want to say like Cheryl Swoops. Like I also want to say it exists as not your go-to game, but if you go to another game, it is top tier over there, right? So I'm just looking at it in two different levels. And I almost want to say it has this John Morant energy too. Like it's just buck wilding, but
I'm on top of your head.
I'm busting ass on this court too. So yeah, man, that's a tough one, man. That's a tough one.
That's
Yeah.
dope. I was thinking when I put the question together, I was saying to myself, just looking at the haikus, and it was more structurally, like looking at the haikus, I was thinking I was going between Iverson and
Ooh,
Harden. I mean, and Hardaway, not Tim,
Penny.
yeah, not
Yeah.
Duncan, Hardaway. And the difference was because they were both crossovers, right? It was like this Hutton is going to cross you with the language being so, it's like you said, it's you have to get to the essence of it. And so I just
Right.
basketball and then a quick cross. The difference between the Iverson and the Hardaway was like one was just real abrupt. One was I'm coming full speed and it's like boom, I'm in the other direction. Whereas Iverson was like, I'm gonna take these long arms and lull you over here, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
take you over here. So for me, it was like that real fight, but it was really about that crossover, that change in direction sharply.
Wow.
That hit me with it.
I changed my answer to your answer.
There you go.
Because that's what it feels like.
I'm gonna have some
Yeah.
thoughts on Kobe anyway. So that go. But what's your bucket list audience or event or stage? Like is it a place that you said that you like, if I could read in this place, I would, or I could read to these people? Like what's that bucket list place for you?
That's probably like a lot of places. I will say the Blue Note in New York. Like, because I don't want this to sound like a flex or anything. I've done Nuyo, and Nuyo is amazing every time, every time. And that's such a hard feeling to top,
Yeah,
right? If you're a poet, you know what you know. Like
yeah,
you could read Madison Square Garden, but to do the Nuyo is a whole different.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Blue Note, Chicago, maybe the Hollywood Bowl.
Mhm.
Um Man, that's tough. And
Yeah.
I think like if it's not necessarily a place,
Mhm.
then like I want to do a Robert Glasper album or I want to do a Jay-Z album. Like
Yes.
I want one of those. I
Yeah.
want one of those placements. Like I think you would not hear from me no more. I'd be like, yo, I'm done. I'm done.
Here's my
I'm done.
pen.
Like,
Exactly. I'm good.
cold
Not
call me. I rocked out. I'm good. I'm up out of here.
not
But
feeling.
yeah, man. Yeah, if it's not places, then it's sort of like those people. Of course, and of course, if Andre calls, like, "Yo, I need something from you," I'm like, "Bro, you ain't gotta pay me. I'll get there myself.
Exactly. I'm out.
I'm already outside."
Exactly. If you what was specifically in writing in writing this book, what was the most surprising thing you learned um about yourself or about writing in that in that book? Did anything sort of pop up that was surprising to you in putting that together?
Um, Great question, man. A lot of things, right? One, the book was born out of, I don't want to use the word laziness, but I wanted to do something different for Poetry Month, right? Poetry Month was for those who don't know, poets take the entire month of April to write a new poem or present a new poem every single day. And I did that once, and it was taxing. It was hard. And a lot of the times you have a bunch of work that you're not going to do anything with, right? It's just going to exist if you put it on Instagram or you put it on Facebook or wherever you decide for it to land. Or you catalog it. You Tupac your shit and you're going to like, I'm going to drop this when I'm, posthumously. Anyway,
Right.
I was like, poetry exists in so many different facets. I'm gonna just do haiku. And I was like, well, I don't want to just do haiku because then I could be about anything. And I was like, ugh, I could do about the thing I love the most, hip hop.
Mm.
So it was born of this idea of wanting to be different for uh National Poetry Month and give something, a little bit more thematic to it. So that was sort of surprise number one that okay, this, and this are all things that you can do, right? But how much that these MCs, because when I first started, it was just about taking the lyrics that they've already said and
Mm.
breaking it down into 17 syllables. And it was amazing how many of them already write like that. Like a lot of these things were broken into 17 syllables. Young Dolph was you keep it real with your dog no matter what. Preach. 17 syllables, bruh. I was
Wow.
like, wow. Wow. I mean, the way I structured it fit into that, but it was already there. So a
Yeah.
lot of these things were already blueprinted into the structure of hip hop haiku. And so that was the next surprise. And then sort of this third one was um that I could all of the attach some artwork into what I'm doing. I'm sorry, I'm plugging up my phone into
Okay.
what I'm doing. So what surprising enough for me was I was going to learn how to edit and learn how to put these things up on Instagram and then start really digging deeper into the creative aspect of what it means to not just present hip hop haiku for National Poetry Month, but build it into this book, build it into this idea of a branding, build it into this, bringing in more community to work. So I got with five of the dopest artists I knew and was a fan of, and they all said yes. I'm like, oh. oh my God, to really come up and put all the artwork into this book. And Michaela Benter, who designed the cover, is this amazing young lady whose artwork is blowing up all over the city. But you know, it for her to say yes to it, I'm like, oh my God, man. So many little pleasant surprises in the creative process of it. But for me, it was I think the biggest surprise was how deep the culture is when you look at graffiti. So I could have probably did 30 on graffiti alone, because it's not just the artwork, it's who, it's where, it's when, DJing, it's the who, it's the where, it's the when. And then so I was like, well, man, listen, donk cars are part of the hip hop culture. If you're from the South, a donk is like an old Chevy Caprice sitting on 32s. It has a big engine and it's loud, right? That's Southern hip hop culture.
Yep.
And then of course 420 falls in April. So weed, right? There's always a weed one that has to come up, because why not weed? But then there's looking at women, there's looking at different cultures who celebrate the culture. It is political stances, it's the clothes, it's everything. And then you realize how much impact that this thing has had over a short 50 years, cuz 50
Yes,
years is not long.
at all.
50 years is not long at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. No, that's amazing. That God, that touches on so many different things, just the expanse of hip hop. But to your point, I never thought about looking at just the lyrics and how many of them, how many folks write in that structure as well. Because I teach workshops, and it's like, and I talk about like because this artist doesn't know what a metaphor is as a simile, they're writing this all in their work. That's all. That's what they're doing, but they don't know
Yeah.
it's called that. So does that mean they're not a poet, right? So you know what I mean? So it just blows up this whole conversation, which is so dope, man. Pick up this book, folks. It's in the chat. Pick it up. It'll you need it for your life. I do have so okay, I got two more questions, two more sections for you. I call it the who that section. You got three people in an elevator. You get caught in an elevator for 3 hours. There's three people in it. Could be past, present, future. Who are those three people that you want in that elevator with you?
I think it is, of course, Andre 3000.
Mhm.
It is an off the wall Michael Jackson.
Yes.
Um, the third person, man, oddly enough, it might be Coretta Scott King. And I'll tell you why. When we talk about these leaders of a movement, our Malcolms, our Martins, we don't often talk about the Betty Shabazes and the Coretta Scotts and what they've had to hold down while their men, or their whatever you want to call them, were out saving the world. They were making sure that man's family was intact, right? And if we talk about how Black women are invisible, that was a clear case, right? Clear case, because they they were so integral to these brothers being able to do what they do. Because it's one thing for me to go out here and risk my life, but in the back of my mind, is my family safe? Is the person I love safe? Are they holding it down? And so I would just love to have that kind of energy on the elevator to ask, like, what was it like? What do you need? Like Mike and Andre, I can get that all day. That's the creative side, right? But I look at Coretta and I think of my own wife and saying, what am I missing? What should I
Yeah.
know that you know about Martin and being home and da 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 da. Not that my wife is a stay-at-home mom. She works, but I know what it is to be out on the road sometimes and just saying, "Hey, I'm gonna be gone for a couple days. You good? Like, make
Right.
sure these kids eat, yada yada yada." So it's like it's that idea, and I was just always intrigued at who she was as a person, because all we ever know her as is Martin's wife. But what kind of dreams and all kinds of stuff. And then I knew she was creative at a lot of stuff. So yeah, it's a great question, bro.
No, dude, that's amazing because I remember when Obama got first elected, my very next poem was to Michelle. For
Yeah,
that reason, right?
yeah,
Because it's almost like when I would assume when you walk into that life, you already know you're walking into this space where I may not be here, I may not come home. So there's a certain, I guess, you've accepted that, but that's you as that individual. What about the 2, 3 kids you got at home? So, no, that is fantastic. And then the fact that you said you categorized which Michael. It's just off the wall. That is one of my favorite albums, and
yeah,
that is important. People don't get that. They're like, "Oh, Michael." I'm like, "Yeah, but which
yeah,
Michael?"
yeah. Which Michael you want? Because there's Michael, and and in my eyes, it's top tier Michael. Like
Yeah, exactly. Article before, and this is I just want I'm gonna say a word. Just I want your response to words, but the thing comes to mind when you
Oh, hold
word.
on. You were chopping up just a little bit.
Okay, so am I back?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. So this quick
Mhm.
fire round, this last part, then you respond with the first that comes to mind, or 2 words, whatever. But your thing that comes when, and I'm going to go through a couple words.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Let's see.
All right, I'm back.
Nope. Choppy.
Uh, hold on. Back yet?
It keeps popping in and out, man. This
No.
internet won't let you be great, bro.
What? I'm gonna put it in chat. Gonna give you a word. Give you a word, and you respond. You respond with the first thing that comes to mind. I'm gonna try this. Hold on. Hold on. Can you hear me now?
I hear you. Yep.
Okay. So I'm gonna give you a word. I'm gonna go off picture so that maybe that's the problem. Okay. So I'll give you a word, and I want you to respond to the first thing that comes to mind when that word.
Okay.
All right. This is called quick fire. Poetry.
Heart.
Art.
Ooh, say that again.
Art.
You were chopping, bro. Wish I could. Did you say heart?
Art.
Art. Oh, passion.
Okay. Door.
Opportunity.
Language.
Love.
Blood.
Say that one more time.
Blood.
Love.
Yeah, love.
Ah, love. Universal.
Mm. Vulnerable.
Hmm. Geez, Tshaka, that's a good one. Fear.
Woman.
Strength.
War.
Unnecessary.
Ownership.
Existence.
Black woman.
You say black? Power.
Yeah. Loss.
Lesson. Ooh, say it one more time. Type it in.
Barbecue. BBQ.
Still choppy, bro.
Type 2. Barbecue.
Barbecue? Oh, family.
Rigid.
You said rigid?
Religion.
Oh. Manufactured.
Mm. Dirty South.
The one living truth.
I love it. Ocean.
Mystery.
J Electronica.
Mm. Mm. There's like 9 words in my brain. Oh,
You can say more words. It's all good.
dream deferred.
Yes. Literature.
Code.
Father.
Oh. Heart.
This one is easy. Andre 3000.
Goat.
Roller skates.
Complicated.
Steph Curry.
Prodigy.
Wife.
Backbone.
That is my quick fire, my friend.
I love it.
Look, I am so honored. Hopefully I'm not chopping up, but I'm so honored to have this space for you, man. I've been thinking about you as a guest for this for a while, but I wanted it to sort of get into its rhythm and its cadence first. But I'm again so honored that you spent this time with us today, and that you shared, you shared yourself, man. This is pieces of you that I didn't know, and I think that folks will appreciate when they hear it back. But man, keep doing this work, man. The stuff that you do, and I say stuff just because there's so much, right? And it's in so many different genres, that's out here helping the community, helping the world, dude, and allowing a space for folks to see us, right? The real is just an amazing task that you've taken on. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you, man. I appreciate what you do. Thank you for joining us. Please, folks, pick up this book, Hip Hop Haikus. Find this man on social media. Follow what he does. You will be amazed at like one individual. It's like the hardest working man in show business. Like just how much stuff that you do. You got to connect with this brother. You will be better for it. Thank you so much for joining us today, dude, and have a great and wonderful rest of your day.
Great, man. Thank you so much for having me, Tshaka. For real. For real. Love you, bro.
Thank you.
Peace. Be good. Bye.
Thanks, man.